Thanks for listening to the Swearing In podcast, where you'll hear the origin stories of those who chose to serve. So ground your gear, take a seat, and listen up. The Swearing In podcast starts right now.
Hello and welcome to the Swearing In podcast. I am your host, Marty Smith. Today, my guest is Air Force Master Sergeant retired John Mathis. John grew up in Nebraska and graduated from high school in Millard, Nebraska. He enlisted in the Air Force at 17 and went off to basic training in 1977 with a guaranteed job in the security police. His technical school was at Lackland Air Force Base and Camp Bullis, Texas. His first assignment was to Elsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota in 1978. He was subsequently assigned to Kadena Air Force Base, Okinawa in 1979, Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska in 1980, RAF Greenham Common, England in 1982, Lowry Air Force Base, Colorado in 1985, and Clark Air Force Base, Philippines in 1989. It was at Clark that John experienced a coup attempt, earthquake, and the Mount Pinatubo eruption. He returned to Offutt Air Force Base in 1992, where he later retired as a Master Sergeant in 1998. Now this concludes your pre-brief, so let's get on with the interview. Today, my guest is retired Air Force Master Sergeant John Mathis. John, thanks for joining the program, and I'm looking forward to getting your story today.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, John, you grew up in Nebraska, right?
That's correct.
I'm just cutting to the chase.
Nah, no problem. Yes, I did.
What city in Nebraska did you grow up in?
Mostly in Omaha. I graduated high school outside of Omaha in a little area called Millard in 77, and then went into the Air Force 3 months later after high school.
Now, your dad retired there or moved there after he retired in 75, right?
That's correct. We lived in Duluth, Minnesota up till 75. My dad retired and we moved to Omaha because that's where he had met my mom when he was stationed there once before. And my mom was from Omaha, so we ended up back there.
That's always a good enough reason when you don't have a reason, right?
Exactly. Yep. What
did your dad do in the Air Force?
He was a radar operator. He flew on EC-121s during Vietnam, and then he was in NORAD in Duluth. He was in the big cement building with no windows where all the radar was and all that for NORAD.
Oh man, that's awesome.
So he did all that kind of stuff.
Did he go career? Did he retire as well?
He was 20 years. Yeah, he was 54 to 75.
Jeez, what a time to be in the military, huh?
Yep. He enjoyed it too, and that's how I discovered, I enjoyed living that life too, because we traveled around, and I wanted to do that and wanted to get some experience, and I wanted to be a cop, so I wanted to be a police officer, and so I went into law enforcement in the Air Force, guaranteed, and that's what I did.
So you actually went to the recruiter December of your senior year when
that's
you were
correct.
When you were 17. You had to get signed for to join up, right?
Right.
So you sealed your fate on that delayed enlistment, but because of that delayed enlistment, is that why you got the job that you wanted?
I think so, because usually there is waiting lists. Yeah. And I was able to get guaranteed to go into that law enforcement career field by doing it that way instead of going in, a week before leaving and signing up and going. Right. So, yeah.
Well, that kind of makes that whole second half of your senior year kind of easy, because you're like, I know what I'm going to do. You don't have to scramble around, right?
Yep. I knew where I was going in September of 77. So that's for sure.
Where did you swear in when you signed that contract, or did you wait until you got down to basic?
No, we swore in when we did the delayed enlistment.
Where was your MEPS at?
It was in Omaha.
Oh, okay. All right.
Left right out of Omaha. Yeah.
did you have some athletic background? Were you not worried about the?
I wasn't real. I mean, I was 17 years old and played baseball and, was a tennis player and stuff like that. So I wasn't real worried about basic training. No.
Tell me about, because we lose that little period of time there in the late 70s, especially with the military. God, it was so weird. I know you don't really have any experience with the military yet, but what was the feeling around the military? Was it kind of anti-military at that time?
I'd say a little of both. I mean, there was, some of my friends were like, "Oh, why do you want to do that?" And go in there and all that. But others were like, "Oh, well, that's pretty cool that you want to serve the country and, get an education possibly while you're in and go that route instead of college route right away and all that." So they just thought it was. So I had a 50-50 split on it, I'd say.
Were you watching coverage of the war? I mean, were you keeping?
Oh yeah, when I grew up, growing up, my dad, like I said, my dad flew in Vietnam, and actually when the POWs were released, he was home then, of course, but we were watching it on TV, and he knew a couple of guys that had been shot down and were held and got released and all that. And so, it was pretty emotional. I could see the emotion in him come up, which just showed to me, the honor he had for doing what he did, and so I was just something that it was instilled in me, about, country and service, basically.
Almost kind of motivated you towards it.
Yes, it did.
Whereas I would imagine there are some, maybe friends, but some other youth out there with not the same home experience that might be repelled by it.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, I grew up mostly in the Air Force. So through my sophomore year, I was going to school with a lot of military kids.
Oh, okay.
And then my senior year was there in Omaha and no military kids in my high school. So,
Quite a difference.
Yes, it was. It was a little different.
So, did your dad prep you to go down to basic?
Yeah, a little bit, as far as just, hey, it's a big game, basically. They're going to yell at you. They're going to scream at you, just take it with stride and do what you're told and so on and so on. So
they fly you down there?
Yeah, flew down there and got there, of course, and late in the evening. And
every time is always, I think they do it on purpose. I think they do. I do too.
I really do. Just to mess with you that first night and give you a few hours of sleep, and you're up the next morning and getting yelled at.
As many people as I've interviewed, I've never run across somebody who says, "Oh yeah, we got there about 9:00, 9:30. We had breakfast, and then we got on with our day." Nope, it's always evening, middle of the night, toe the yellow line, hat in the head.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it seems like that for everybody.
What struck you when you first got down
there? The different personalities.
Oh yeah.
Of the people you're going to be in the Air Force, it was called a flight.
Yeah.
You were in a flight in your squadron and just, from everywhere in the United States. And, I was
all crammed together.
Exactly. And I was used to different people, of course, because I grew up like that. So it was no big deal to me, but it was interesting, just some of the attitudes and some of the differences in people and thought processes and everything else.
Yeah, it is weird when you start assessing. You're like, geez, what are they thinking about me?
Exactly. What do they see here?
This guy's a crazy man.
Exactly.
How'd basic go for you?
Oh, it went fine. It was, I still remember, a few things like on our first inspection when we hadn't got a haircut yet or got a uniform, and they're going through your bags and throwing away stuff and all that and taking your suitcases away. And you had to report for the first time to your training instructor.
Uh-huh.
And, the saying was, "Sir, Airman Mathis reports." Well, my dad was a sergeant. So, of course, it came out of my mouth, "Sir, Sergeant Mathis reports."
Oh, no.
Oh, my God. Who the hell made you a sergeant?
So now you broke the cardinal rule, and now you stand out.
Then I had to do a lot of and all that. So just a learning thing there. So yeah,
It's so silly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's silly now, but at 17 or 18,
yeah,
it's like, hell.
oh yeah, exactly. You got the spotlight now, and
Right.
all that. But it was basic overall. Was it was interesting. You learn discipline and all that, like you're supposed to, and
Yeah.
you learn about rank structure and you learn about the military. So yeah, to me it was a good learning experience, and I enjoyed it. So really, overall, not a problem.
Do you have any criers?
Not that I really recall. I don't really recall anybody that really lost it or had to leave for any reason,
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody did pretty well. There's a couple that we had to help out with different things physically or something like that, or, doing different, getting your uniforms correct and everything.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Sure.
but nothing where we had anybody that was just whining every night and wanted to go home and all that. Didn't have a problem with that. No.
You guys honor flight or anything?
No, nothing like that. No,
All right.
no.
Just a good old regular flight.
Yeah, just a good old regular flight. And we did win field day when we had field day. So we got to do, actually it was within our first couple weeks, a bunch of us were on different teams, and we won field day, and they gave us a base pass, and we'd only been there like a week and a half or something. We had no clue where to go, or what to do. And I mean, we just basically got our name tags and everything sewed on with a few days before that. So, it was like, okay, so yeah.
I think they realized that when they were going to award that as a prize, right? They were like, hey, we'll give them a pass. These guys don't have any money. They can't go anywhere. They don't know.
We just basically walked around and looked around, and that's it. So,
but it was still hard earned. Where was tech school?
Right there at Lackland, also law enforcement and security. Yeah, we all go take a bus right over to the tech school. So we didn't go far. But
how long is that tech school?
Or
how long was it back then? Yeah.
Back then it was 6 weeks was only the tech school. And then you went out to Camp Bullis, Texas, which is right outside in Medina, Annex, it's called. You go out there for 4 weeks for a little combat training thing. So you do that for 4 more weeks. So it was 10 weeks there.
You get out of tech school when?
About mid-January of 78.
78?
Yeah.
Did they tell you what your first assignment was going to be? Like midway?
Yeah, we put our dream sheets in while we were in tech school and all that. And my last stateside choice was Elsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota. And that's the one I got.
No kidding.
So, of course. And I'm sitting there really going, Elsworth, South Dakota, Rapid City, 8-9 hours from Omaha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, didn't go too far, but.
You were a nuke cop.
Well, no, I was law enforcement. So I worked the gates and patrol.
Okay.
So I was the law enforcement side of security police, because you had the security specialist and your law enforcement specialist.
That's right. Eric did explain that to me. And the difference is basically your duties, right?
Right. And security specialists are the flight line guys and the missile guys.
Okay.
And then law enforcement guys are the guys out on the gates and doing patrol on the main base.
So when they split you up that way, is it just a whole different set of skills that they're teaching you?
Somewhat, yeah, because even though during my career, my first 3 bases or so, I had to augment security now and then if they were short of people.
Okay.
So I would still have to go out on the flight line and walk around a plane now and then. But yeah, I mean, I never did that in tech school to learn how to do that.
Right,
I just basically got thrown into it whenever I was, wherever I was, and they needed somebody. But yeah, it's the skills. It was totally different because law enforcement did a lot more paperwork, dealt with people more as far as, like a regular cop.
Yeah.
So you're doing a lot more basic police stuff versus security of flight lines and missile silos.
Yeah, they're doing
forth.
more tactical,
tactical
things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they have a little more. They're dealing with the more of the priority resources, where we're dealing with the base populace.
So you were called, what was your title? Were you all
security police? We're all security police. And then you just had your security specialist and
okay.
your law enforcement specialist.
I got you.
But we're all security police. You all wear the same badge, the same beret, all that stuff.
Okay. So what'd you think of
Ellsworth?
Yeah.
Well, I got there, and within a month, I put a dream sheet in for worldwide anywhere.
Oh, really?
And I was gone 13 months later. So
really,
yeah, I got orders pretty quick to Kadena Air Base, Okinawa, Japan.
Oh man,
and went over there in April of '79. So yeah,
now, you must have thought you hit the jackpot.
Oh, I did.
Right there,
I
right?
did. I was excited about going over there because, you know, my dad had been over in PAC-AF, Pacific Air Forces, before. Sure. And so he gave me a little rundown on life over there and all that. And I was looking forward to it. I really was. And I did enjoy it. I mean, I had a great time once I got to Okinawa. I was 19 years old. And
oh, man.
Yeah. And it was a eye opener in some aspects, and
right.
but still a good time, you know. And
did you get
we had a lot of, oh no, didn't get one there.
Okay.
No,
that's
not
just
there,
for the Navy guys, I guess, right?
Yeah. I got one later on, of course, at other bases, but, but yeah, I mean, Kadena was a very busy base as far as for law enforcement because, I mean, you had 13 Marine camps at that time on Okinawa.
Oh, yeah, geez.
And on the weekends, the Marines came to the Air Force base to play. So
really,
it could be busy. And if the ships came into harbor or into port, you had a lot of Navy guys all over the place too. So yeah, you could be busy.
My last duty station was at Schofield Barracks in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. My last duty station in the Army, and you knew when the fleet was in and when they were out, boy. I mean, right. You go downtown and you're like, oh my God, look at all these men here.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, and that's how it was. You knew when they were in or the Marines were out on, you know, pass or whatever, because the one gate that dealt with the main area of downtown, gate 2,
yeah,
it would be just continuous 20, 30 people walking in and out for all night long.
Oh, really?
You know,
really.
So just going down to the bars and coming back and going to the clubs and all that. So yeah,
I should note that back then, up until 2001, right? It was all open bases. I mean, you could walk in and walk out.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just had
pretty
to
much show your ID
that
card.
Was it, right?
Yeah, show your ID card and you're on base.
Yeah. So God, it had to be a lot of work. Jeez.
Yeah, it was interesting. That's for sure. It was a good time. It was an 18-month tour that I got there, and I enjoyed it. So
did that count as a long tour then?
No, it was a short tour. They gave us. No, I'm sorry. They did. You're right. They gave me a long for that one.
Oh, they did.
The shorts then. The shorts were a year or less.
Yeah.
So you had to get a year or less.
Did that get you entitled to pick your base of return?
No base of preference. No base of preference. So I was hitting so when I left there, I had 3 years in.
Yeah.
So I put my base of my base number 1 base on my dream sheet for Offutt because I wanted to go home.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And I wanted to get out after 4 years.
Oh, really? I had thought that. Coming up on re-up?
Yeah, I had a year to go. So I wasn't going to re-up, but I got to Offutt I was at 3 years, 1 month or 2 months when I got to Offutt.
Yeah.
And my plan was not to re-up. I was going to test for police departments, which I ended up testing for Bellevue Police, which is right outside the base there in Omaha and at Offutt. And they weren't hiring at the time.
Oh, shit.
So I ended up like number 8 or 10 or something on the list. They didn't hire anybody. And Omaha wasn't hiring at the time.
Really?
So I didn't even apply there. So I just re-enlisted. So,
well, and this was, so we're talking 80, 81?
Yeah, that was 1980.
Yeah, when the job market was still pretty lousy.
Right. Yeah. And unfortunately, though, the next year they annexed a bunch of property or a bunch of land around Bellevue, and they hired like 10 cops.
Of course. Of course.
And of course, a couple guys I knew got on that were getting out, but I had already re-enlisted. So
it's all that crazy timing.
Yeah. It's just all it is. It's timing. So yeah, I re-enlisted and left again. And from Omaha, I was at Offutt till I was there, October 80 till December 82. And I went to RAF Greenham Common in the UK.
Wow.
So I went over to a cruise missile base.
Oh, geez.
First cruise missile base that went active in the Air Force. So I went over there.
Missile base. That's
the ground launch cruise missile. Glickum.
Oh, the Glickums. That's right.
Yep, Glickum.
I remember hearing that term.
Yep. If you can't lick them, glick them.
Where'd you make E5 at?
So I made that in England.
Oh, okay.
Yep. When I was stationed there, I got there in 82 and put it on in 83. And so I was there for 3 years. And
oh, man,
that was another enjoyable assignment. I mean, it was a very political and newsworthy assignment because we had a large contingent of peace demonstrators, peace women. They were called the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, CND, and they basically lived around the entire perimeter of the base.
Oh, geez.
And there was times we were 5,000-10,000 women encircling the base on peace protests, and
wow,
you didn't go home if you lived off base. You didn't go home for 3 or 4 days until protests were done for a while, and a bunch of them left, and just the normal ones that stayed there.
Now, were they peaceful, or they just so many people you couldn't move through them, or
they were an interesting bunch? I'll say that they were some of the. I guess I can say some of the nastiest people I've met.
No kidding.
They were living in homemade tents and so forth, no showers, no bathrooms, doing what they had to do. And they would cut, whatever fence line they could to get on base. If you caught a bunch of them, and which we caught a lot of them all the time, we'd have a bus load of them, and they would do things on the bus and throw it at you.
You kidding me?
Oh, no.
All women.
Yes.
Right?
All women.
Wow, that's some dedication, boy.
People can Google all the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament at Greenham Common and see all kind of things about them women. But they did things like they would try to one time they tried to take the U.S. flag down at headquarters. Yeah. And they got knocked around a little bit about that. And then one time a bunch of them stripped down naked and coated themselves in motor oil and ran through the gate. Huh. And so you try to grab somebody that's got motor oil all over them. It's not too easy.
Oh my God. Too bad we didn't have YouTube back then. That would have made for some.
Oh my goodness.
Very entertaining stuff.
Yeah. So it was a handful. And, the biggest thing that happened, I think, while I was there was when we were having the actual nuclear weapons brought in by C5s. They were landing, and we had the gates all secure, and barriers up at different places.
Sure.
And one of the back gates was being manned by the Ministry of Defense police that worked with us. And some local ran through the gate with a vehicle, came through the flight line area, and he was heading towards the C5 that was downloading nuclear weapons.
Whoa.
And all of the guards go down on a knee with an M16, and then here comes a blazer. One of our security guys, two security guys in a blazer, come bouncing across, and there's total video of it because they were videoing the downloading of the weapons. And this blazer comes across the flight line and just rams this guy and tips him on his side and takes him out right there. So, I mean, if they hadn't done that, he would have got lit up anyway by God knows how many M16s.
Probably saved his life. Yeah.
More than likely. Yeah.
Whoa,
so,
man.
So that was a pretty big deal.
I mean, to see something like that at 21, or you just like, oh my God.
I was 22, 23.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah.
Where was this base by? What part of England was it in?
It was in Newbury, England. Which about an hour outside of London by train.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. By train and car. Yeah. It wasn't far, but it was, I think it was the county was Berkshire. Was where it was, if I remember right. But Newbury was the town that was the closest.
Did they like Americans at that time?
Some did, some didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, because some of them didn't want us there as far as bringing nuclear weapons in and all that, even though their government agreed to it.
Yeah, understandable.
And the security guys that were assigned, like I said, I was still law enforcement, of course, but our security guys were the ones that were actually in the nuclear area guarding the nukes, and they actually integrated RAF regiment were assigned to the base, and they were given top secret clearances or whatever they needed to work with the nuclear weapons also as a joint venture in guarding them.
Wow.
So, and then if they deployed, which they did do exercises where they would deploy, not actually with the weapons, of course, but they would deploy with the launchers and the security guys and everybody else out to fields like they were going to war and play games, of course. And yeah, so the RAF regiment was integrated with the security and they worked together and were on the same shifts together and all that.
Wow.
So they had their own barracks on base and next to ours. And yeah, it was interesting too, working with them.
Had a pretty good NCO club, I would imagine, huh?
Oh yeah. And they had their own little pub that went on too. So you could go there too. So
I don't know how that works.
That.
Yeah. I mean, deploying the cutter with all that multinational, those guys always have like their own self-contained something.
Oh yeah. Yes, that's for sure. And they started their own RAF police pub, basically. And yeah, so we could go in there also, and they'd go to our NCO club, of course. Yeah.
That's good. They didn't exclude you?
Oh, no, because basically, like I said, the security guys and them were on the same shifts. They worked the same time together. They worked in the same vehicles, driving around together. And so, yeah, a lot of them became probably lifelong friends,
Yeah, sure.
So,
sure.
Yeah.
You stayed
there. Yeah, so that was
2 years?
3 years.
3 years.
Till 1985, December 85, I left there.
When you re-upped, did you just re-up for another 4 or did you go like 6?
Yeah, I did another 4.
Okay.
So my 8 years would have been in 85.
Yeah.
And I was married and, so I re-enlisted again. Of course, we had a new son and I was heading back to the States. So I re-enlisted again.
That was a pretty involved re-enlistment there, that second one, right?
Yeah.
The first re-enlistment. Right?
The first one, yeah. I was married. I got married actually at Offutt when I was in Omaha. So I got married there and she went with me to England. Then we had our son in England.
Did you guys know each other before?
No, I met her while I was stationed in Omaha.
And you were only there for a couple of years, right?
Yeah, 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I left England in December 85 and headed to Denver, Colorado then to Lowry.
Oh, you did?
When Lowry was still open. Yeah. I went there for 3 years. Yeah.
Hey, it's still weird that they closed that down because it was so integral to many AFSCs.
Yeah, it was. I was surprised too. I mean, I enjoyed that too. I was there 3.5 years and I really liked the Denver area and enjoyed the base. I mean, you're sitting there right between Denver and Aurora. And, we stayed pretty active there too, because it was a total law enforcement mission, dealing, there was no security because there was no flight line.
Right.
So you dealt with, you were basically just there doing law enforcement work and you stayed pretty busy there too, because you had a lot of people would do things on base and then sometimes civilians would get on and do something. So dealt with Denver police and Aurora.
Oh, you did?
A lot. You dealt with them a lot.
Did you ever do any joint training with those guys?
Oh yeah. We went to all kind of classes with them, different radar classes, field sobriety test classes, things like that. And a lot of our reservists were Denver and Aurora cops.
Oh yeah.
That would come out and work with us, once a month or do their 2 weeks in the summer and all that stuff. So got to know a lot of.
What was the job like? Was it getting humdrum at that point? Did you have a favorite part of doing the job?
No, I was still doing patrol my first year and a half there. And as a flight chief, it's called, where I was in charge of a shift. Oh. And then I moved into a office job for about a year and a half. So about split the time, about a year and a half, I did an office job in reports and analysis, it's called, where we basically processed all the paperwork from reports, tickets and all that, and did crime trend analysis and things of that nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I start working in what was called personnel security, doing the paperwork and such for security clearances for like tech school students and everybody needing top secret clearances and all that. So I start working in that.
Okay.
So so I got into that for my last year and a half there, and started doing that and got it's called a special experience identifier in that.
that's
for doing that job. So yeah. So we processed plane. Well, we were busy because it was, being an air training command base, you had all the tech school students and they had to get clearances and everything on doing their paperwork. And then we also handled like all the OSI reports. We were the repository to handle all the OSI reports. Yeah. So the OSI was always up there bringing in reports or coming to get reports or whatever.
Did you ever get approached to go over to OSI?
I had thought about it, but I was kind of set in what I was doing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I never really went for it because I was enjoying what I did. And it was always there was always a stigma about OSI anyway.
Well,
about them.
Yeah, depending on who you talk to, I suppose, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, I knew a lot of the agents there and at other bases I'd been at, and they were all great guys. I never had a problem with any of them.
Right.
So,
just the nature of the work. Yeah. Nature of the work.
Yeah. So, Lowry was a good base, though. It was a good law enforcement base to do your job and learn more about law enforcement.
So, what year did you leave Lowry?
So, I left Lowry in June of '89, and that's when I went to Clark Air Base in the Philippines.
Well, you got to be at least a tech by now, right?
Yeah, I was a tech. Yep, I was an E6 then. So headed over there in '89 and worked flight there for about 8 months doing patrol. And I was actually the assistant flight chief there. The flights and the law enforcement and security flights in the Philippines are huge because the security police group there was over 1,000 cops.
Oh,
you had 1,000 cops on base. And our flights, our shifts, you had 4 law enforcement shifts and 4 security shifts or flights. And each of them were 95, 100 guys there.
That's like Army numbers there. You got a battalion.
Yeah. It was crazy. It was unbelievable when you'd have guard mount briefing, and you're calling out the duty roster of, 85, 90 people there at a time.
Jeez.
And so, it was an interesting job. And I had lived in the Philippines as a kid when I was only 3 years old. So I didn't really have any memory of it, but a lot of pictures from my parents, So when I got over there, I was able to go around and bought a video camera and videotape everything on base and sent it to my mom and dad. And they recognized so much stuff that was still the same from the 60s.
That's pretty cool.
So, the Philippines was another great law enforcement base. If you want to learn the job, you're dealing with all kind of people, and it was a busy place.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just like any overseas base, you're always going to be a little busier because you get people from TDY from Korea and TDY from Guam and TDY from the States and everything else. And
that's right.
So it was a busy base. And then, of course, with once the natural disasters started and coup attempts before that, like you talked about. And it was,
so take me to
a different life.
So walk me through that. So what, when the coup went down, I know it didn't last very long.
No,
but long enough to put everybody on high alert, I would imagine, right?
Well, as I recall it all, I mean, I was on what was called a fire team, 4 of us in a Humvee, basically assigned to a sector, watching the part of the wall, making sure nothing happened, but it was just basically increased security on the base because you didn't know what was going on downtown or what was going on in Manila. And even our Philippine Air Force guards that worked the gates, you might have 5 of those out there working with a couple Air Force guys.
Yeah.
And those 5 guards, 3 of them might be pro-government, 2 might be pro for whoever's trying to take over.
Oh, sure.
So they would, they would stand on opposite side of the gate from each other. They'd still work the same shift, but they would stand apart from each other during the coup attempt.
It's just one more thing you got to be aware of as the Americans look out for this, right?
Exactly.
Oh,
so, and and they, it was just interesting, the whole thing there. And
did they lock down the base?
Partially, for a while there, I believe they did. And we had times we did get locked down for other issues. I was working one night as the night shift supervisor, and I was at the main gate.
Yeah.
And it was like 1 a.m. or something. And all of a sudden a car blew up couple blocks downtown. And it was some local police chief's car that the New People's Army, the terrorist group over there in the Philippines, was trying to assassinate. So immediately, of course, we locked down the base and we go into threat condition Charlie, which we're normally in anyway. It seemed like I don't remember how they titled it back then. It was like semi Charlie. But anyway, so things like that would happen. Or, we had a assassination of two guys from Korea. They were downtown in TDY and the NPA came up behind them with their 45s, which they always used, and shot two guys and killed them, two Air Force guys.
Oh, geez.
And that locked the base down for a while. And then up by, I believe it was not Da'u. I can't remember the name. I think it was Camp Donald. Can't remember the name of the camp, but it had a lot of government contractors that worked there.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was also an Air Force site, and we had some people assigned there. And supposedly the New People's Army was going to try to take out the commander of it. And one day they had a truck, with the canvas sides on it and all that in front of, they thought, the commander's car. And they did a little evasive action and turned sideways, lifted up the canvas and opened up with M16s or whatever on this car. And it didn't turn out to be the commander. It just happened to be some contractor that worked there that had the same type of car.
My God.
So they ended up killing him. And so that closed the base down again for a couple weeks, and nobody went off base at all unless you lived off base. And then it was just from your home to work and all that. And so when they brought that car back, though, I mean, I don't remember how many bullet holes, but at least 100, 150 bullet holes were in it.
That's like European assassination stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And they kept it out there where people could see it to remind you of what could happen.
That's smart. Yeah.
To watch yourself. Yeah. Yeah. So it was, there was a lot of different things, and, things like that, plus the natural disaster type things.
So,
when we had the,
what came first, the earthquake or the volcano?
Earthquake was first. I remember the earthquake good too, because I was actually driving down the street in my pickup truck going to a college class I was taking.
Okay.
And my truck started bouncing.
Oh,
and I thought really? Something was wrong with my shocks or something.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the heck was going on. So I pull over and I get out and I'm looking at my truck and it's still bouncing. And then I look around and the trees are bouncing a little. So into a ditch I went and waited till that stopped and figured out what was going on. And so then was an earthquake, and a pretty good one. I mean, I got home and I had a German Shepherd at the time, and I put her she usually went into the laundry room area where we had her bed and her food and water and all that.
Uh-huh.
And I went in there and things had fell off shelves that were in there, and she was scared big time. I mean, she was terrified.
Sure.
So,
right.
Yeah. So it was, a lot of not destruction, I'll say, but there was a lot of, like the commissary had part of the front entrance fall in and things like that. So it was a pretty good one.
How big was that thing?
The earthquake?
Let me see.
I would think in the low 7s, maybe even a little more.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that was dumb of me.
I can't remember exactly.
I Googled Philippine earthquake, but they've had so many, so I'm not going to look it up.
Oh yeah. I mean, during the volcano, we had numerous. So
what were you doing when that thing, I mean, obviously you were getting warnings, right? They were.
Right. We months in advance, with like 3 months in advance, they had what they called volcanologists there.
Yeah.
That were, assessing all the little blows and little eruptions and trying to figure out when it was going to really blow.
Right.
And, they came up with, sometime in June, it would going to be blowing big time. And that's when early June is when they started getting rid of all the dependents and non-essential military and getting them taken out by, some planes, but mostly a lot of them went out by boat. A lot of them went down to Subic and went out on Navy boats. And
how about your wife and kid?
She was military. My son was still in the States with my ex-wife. I'll say that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Fair enough.
So my current wife though was Air Force. So she was there already. So she was a cop too. So yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, we were. we were there, but they got rid of all the dependents.
Went a little far, huh?
Yeah.
That's all right. We've all been there too. So.
Oh yeah, we've all been there. So yeah, it was a lot of dependents, or all the dependents left, and there was I don't remember the exact amount of us that were left at the time, but it wasn't very many, no more than a couple thousand, I wouldn't think, were left on the base of military. So yeah.
Were you working with Eric Perrott at this time?
Well, he worked at the time in the 6009th Training Squadron, which was a teaching combat skills and so forth, where they brought in teams from other bases over in PACAF to learn combat skills and stuff. And our guys too would go there, and that's where he was working. And then I was actually working in the information security, where we did classified inspections on squadrons and stuff to, check their classified and all that stuff. So I was working that job. And then once the volcano hit, though, we were all basically doing just regular security police type duties, of course, walking around with, well, even before it, we were getting ready to go. We basically had a to-go bag for about 2 weeks. You had a to-go bag. Yeah. An A3 flight bag you could have one A3 flight bag full of what you needed.
Really?
And that was what you carried around basically with you all over the place.
That was your bug out, huh?
Yeah, it was your bug out bag. So if you were going over to the gym for a while, you better take your bag with you, and just in case it went right then. So
where were you when the big eruption happened?
I was in the barracks.
Okay.
And if I remember right, we had sirens go off and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And that's when we knew, and they made announcements that it was the big, blow basically. And it was, if I remember, June 15th, if I recall correctly, of 91.
Okay.
And that's when the big blow went. And I was assigned a deuce and a half then to drive, taking up supplies and stuff up to this college around another inactive volcano, Mount Riot.
All right.
We had to go up there, was our evacuation point for the base. And that was a couple-hour drive minimum.
Oh, shit.
So while we were going, though, I mean, it was raining ash, and by noon it was pitch blackout, and there was earthquakes going on, of course, from the volcano erupting, and we had a typhoon going through at the same time.
Oh my God.
So it was raining, windy, ash everywhere, and you as you talked about before, you did catch people, not like you asked about basic training, somebody whining about going home.
Yeah.
You had it there. This was, you found people huddled in corners wondering if that island was going to sink.
Well, that's wrath of God. I mean, you got all that stuff happening at the same time. Black in the middle of the day, ash and rain and wind. Oh my God. God.
So it was, and so when we start convoying up, of course, a lot of locals start following us that way, because they're saying if the Americans are going that way, it must be safe.
Yeah, that's fair.
So they start following us up to the college, and the colleges there wasn't exactly like a college here.
Yeah.
So it was more of an outdoor living area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we brought up our own porta pots and water buffaloes and MREs, and that's where we'd be staying until we were able to go back to the base.
How long did you stay there for?
Well, I actually only had to stay for a day and a half, because I was on the first 44-man team that went back to secure the base.
Okay.
So I was able to go back with the first group of people, and we went out to the Dau radio site, and we stayed there, which was just a building basically, and had a bathroom, but nothing was working on base. No power, no water, no nothing.
Yeah. So
we basically were going around trying to secure things and see what was really, what happened, what we needed to look at structurally and everything like that. If we had to put guards on stuff, because we would have looters and so forth coming over. So we had to really start looking at that. And, once we got things where we could figure out what was going on, and the base commander decided to start bringing people back. And I think it took about 5 or 6 days to get everybody back.
Yeah.
To where, finally we got some power going and able to put water buffaloes outside barracks and, have fresh water and stuff and all that. So, yeah, it took a little bit.
Now, Eric was describing one of his duties. He had to go around and shoot the dogs.
Yep. Because a lot of people left their dogs. They didn't when they evacuated, they didn't take
Yeah.
them with them. So you had packs of dogs running the base. Yeah. And that was a duty. My duty, I was assigned basically cleanup type stuff where I had a team of guys and we were going around to different buildings that were in the security police buildings that we had. And we were on roofs. Shoveling off ash. We were cutting trees that had fallen on buildings.
Oh, okay.
Basically just securing things, getting everything back to where we could live in them or work in them or whatever we had to do. And because nobody knew what the plan was, if we were leaving that base or we're staying or what's going on.
Right.
So
that whole concept of shoveling ash like snow. It's just, I can't
exactly.
imagine that. I can't imagine.
Yeah. Except we were all in combat boots and shorts. So I still remember that too. I mean, the base commander finally, after about a month of basically no uniforms, no haircuts, no shaving, said it's time to get back to military. So, yeah.
Which you guys were glad to do if you had some working facilities, right?
Yeah. But it was still fun to not have to wear a uniform for a while and all that good stuff. But it's, we got the base back to, they brought in some people, TDY, of course, from, Guam and a few other places like comm people and stuff to help get stuff set back up. And
wow,
they brought in some PJs to help do things. And because I ran into a guy, actually, one of the PJs, pararescue guys.
Yeah.
Him and I had went to leadership school together in England back in the early 80s.
No kidding.
And he came in, I can't remember where he was stationed at in PACAF, but he came in with a crew to help get things going on the base again, as far as water filtration and doing things like that.
Yeah.
And so his job was to get the pool cleaned up. So all the PJs were there helping figure out ways of getting the ash out of the pool, things like that, and so they actually figured out that when we didn't have water running real good, the ash was sinking to the bottom of the pool, which left the water up top pretty clean. So you could actually get in and wash off a little bit.
Oh, okay.
In the pool. So yeah. But we got everything back to, we actually had one of the swimming pools reopen within a couple months where we had a clean pool that would have to be, they'd have to try to cover it sometimes, or they'd have to just, take out the ash and stuff during the day. But they were able, because we still had blows going on now and then where things we'd get ash blows and all that out of the volcano now and then.
Oh, God.
But yeah, so it was a great assignment. Like I said, Eric and I were roommates for a while, and then they moved us to another barracks where we were basically had single rooms, but we shared a bathroom.
Oh, all right.
So we were together over there too, and so he was there with me through all that, and we had a good time at times, and figuring out what was going to happen though was just on everybody's mind. So that was what we were waiting for to hear, and they would never really give us answers for quite a while there until they figured it out.
They didn't know.
They didn't know either.
Right?
No, they didn't know at what point if we were going to be able to reopen that base or not.
Well, and wasn't the lease up for negotiation at that time?
Yes, that's the big thing. What was going on was they were negotiating if we were going to stay or not, if the Americans were going to be staying in the Philippines. That's what the whole thing was about. So,
did you stay all the way until they made that decision to close it down, or were you gone before then?
No, I actually left on the final day it was open.
Really?
So I was one of the last ones. I have paper. I still have a few copies of it. I was actually one of the honor guard that took the flag down on the final day.
Oh man,
there was 4 of us. We got picked by the wing commander. They actually sent a bunch of our names into the wing commander, and we had to go interview with the wing commander. And
you did? Jeez.
He picked me as the NCOIC with 3 guys under me, and we were the honor guard to take the flag down and present it to the ambassador when we left the base that day.
You get into Stars and Stripes?
Oh, it got all over the world. We landed.
Really?
We landed in Guam, Hawaii, and LA, and we were on every front page of newspaper.
Oh, no kidding.
So it was kind of, And then when I got home to Omaha, my dad had the copies from there where it was on the front page.
Awesome. That's really cool.
So so it was pretty neat. Yeah, it was pretty neat. And it was sad too, to leave there because, a lot of the Filipinos are very hardworking people, very generous people, very nice people. And, they were losing a lot. by this base leaving.
Absolutely.
And
yeah, absolutely.
It was sad for a lot of them. It really was. Because a lot of them had worked there for generations. Some of them had worked there.
Yeah, the politics of that whole situation is, and still to this day, it's
still, yeah. And there's supposedly negotiations going on now to maybe try to open something up with the problems going on over there.
Yeah,
with Taiwan and China. So who knows?
Right.
Who knows? But yeah. So we left there in November '91. So that, and what was funny about that too was when I had already had an assignment given me before the volcano, because I was down to like less than a year to go.
Yeah.
And I had an assignment to bowling in DC.
Oh.
And so what they did though, after the volcano and everything got situated, they brought in a assignment team from Randolph. And you walked into the room, you sat down with a guy from your specialty, and he looked at you and said, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "Well, I already got an assignment to bowling." He goes, "It don't matter. Where do you want to go?"
Oh, you're finally getting basic preference.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, wouldn't mind going back to Lowry. Well, Lowry's closing and there's no E6, E7 openings.
Yeah, sure.
I'm like, all right, how about the Academy or Pete Field? Nope, no openings there, and blah, blah, blah for law enforcement. And so I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, and my son was in Omaha and my family, so I'm like, Offutt. And the guy didn't even look it up. He just wrote out the orders because nobody asked to go to Offutt.
Yep, again.
so I'm like, wow. So I got orders to Offutt again and ended up back there in early '92. So
I'm surprised the guy didn't yell over his shoulder, "Hey, I got one."
Pretty much.
I don't even have to non-vol him.
Don't even have to. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I was like, oh my goodness. So, yeah, but it was.
Yeah, but that's better for family, right? And
yeah, I was happy. My son was there, like I said, my parents and stuff, and all that. So I was. It worked out. I went back to Omaha and ended up staying there my rest of my career. Stayed there until I retired.
Really?
Yeah.
I got
an
assignment. You just kind of PCA over, and
that was my 7th assignment.
Yeah.
So back to Offutt, and I got an assignment actually about 2 years after I got there to Yokota, but then they got canceled. So never ended up going anywhere else. But I just stayed there.
You made master there, I assume.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's correct.
Ever had any thoughts on going for senior?
I actually, at Offutt, my decision was I was getting out at 20. I knew that.
Yeah. Okay.
And I didn't really want to. I'd already worked office jobs. I was tired of doing that stuff. I like working flight, working the street. So I was the day shift flight chief, which I enjoyed. And I tested for senior, 3 times and always would miss it by 10, 15 points. So if I would have took a back office job, it might have helped, but
yeah, maybe.
I wasn't looking to do that. I finished my education. I got my bachelor's degree done while I was there, and I was happy with that. And, did senior in NCO Academy by correspondence like you're supposed to, and got all the block and wing commander's endorsement and all that stuff. But I just didn't put in to go to a job that would have got me it.
Maybe it's a good thing because, if you'd have made senior, you'd have been taken out of the job you wanted to do anyway.
Exactly. And I mean, I probably would have stayed in longer than 20, but maybe. I stayed in my 20, and I was, proud to do what I did. And I was 38 years old retiring, and
that's perfect.
And I could go do another something for another 20 years somewhere. So, and that's what I did.
Okay. Here's my standard 2 questions.
Okay.
And the first is, what was your biggest ass chewing? And you think about it. Don't worry. I edit this up anyway. So,
well,
don't tell me you never got one, but.
Oh, I'm not going to say I never got in trouble. That's for sure. We all got in trouble. We all fell on our swords now and then.
That is true.
Well,
inevitable.
I mean, we all, I've always admitted, even on my job application stuff, I had 2 Article 15s. I still made master sergeant.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I had one as a senior airman, and I did something pretty stupid. I was at Kadena I was at Kadena in Okinawa, and it was actually about 4 or 5 days before a bunch of us were PCSing out. We were leaving, and we had been partying and stuff. And
right.
We had a guard post in finance, and I called the guard post, and this girl was working, and I knew her, and I was just kind of messing with her. And I pretended I was the desk sergeant and said, "Go ahead and turn your alarm off." And she's like, "Okay." Well, she didn't ask about authenticating like you're supposed to. And I'm like yelling, "No, don't." And I hear her turn the key.
She did.
So I friggin' hang up the phone in the barracks, and of course it went on. And when they found out it wasn't the desk sergeant, they came to the different barracks of the cops asking if anybody was around the phones doing anything. And my name came up and blah, blah. And I admitted it. I'm like, that's what I did. I had been drinking. I was stupid, blah, blah, blah. And so this was on the day they actually came to me the day we were leaving.
Oh, you almost made it.
I had already put my bags in to go because I worked customs at the time. So I was able to put my bags in early.
Yeah.
But they got me in Article 15 within 6 hours.
Oh my God.
So my punishment was $100 fine, and that was it. $100 out of my next paycheck. That was it. I got on my plane. I left. That was it.
God, you didn't lose a stripe or anything.
No,
so that's
I was
great.
very lucky. I was very lucky. Yeah. I mean, I went in, I told the commander and first sergeant, I did it. I admit it. I'm very sorry. It was stupid. It was, it was being a stupid kid getting ready to leave and drinking too much. So, yeah. But that was probably the worst thing. Yeah.
Well, sure.
Yeah. And I got my ass chewed quite a bit by the commander, first sergeant, everybody. Yeah. Well, I remember, when I was stationed in England, I went to leadership school. I was an E5 then, and we were doing classes on, counseling and so forth in leadership school. And I was the only cop in the class. So the instructor for leadership school said, "Hey, I want you to be the counselee. I want you to lay into them." And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, right.
So, so somebody comes in, as your supervisor, and they sit down and say, "So, what's going on in your life that we're having these problems?" And I'd look at them and say, "None of your effing business. Get out of my face."
Yeah, that's
and
hard.
They'd be like, they didn't know what to do. Most of them were like,
wait, you're supposed to say, I'm supposed to fix your problem.
Exactly. And the instructor's behind them just telling me, and waving his fingers, like egging me on, keep going, keep going. So
that's good. That's probably the best training you'll ever get, because those are the situations when the guy won't talk to you.
You're going to run into people that are, you're going to have people that are not going to be wanting to get, counseled or reprimanded or whatever. And, not going to fall on their sword, as I say, and all that good stuff.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. The second question I have is, what's your proudest moment of the military?
I had quite a few. But like I said about the Philippines, taking the flag down there and all that was one of my prouder moments.
How could
being able, like when I went into the wing commander and interviewed with him, and he said, "Why do you want to be on this detail?" And I brought up, hey, in 1962 and 63, I lived here as a dependent when I was 3 years old. And my dad was stationed here. And now I'm here as an adult, as a tech sergeant. And I think it would be very awesome to be one of the ones to take the flag down on the final day of this base, and he I think that's one of the things that got him, to go for me. So that was one of my proud moments. And honestly, as a military cop during my time in the Air Force, I can say I probably gave CPR to people 7 to 10 times.
Really?
And at every base, I gave it a few, once or twice,
Yeah.
And I got to say, 70% was able to save. So that was a proud thing. That was a thing that I was very happy for, is just to be able to save somebody,
and that touches, when we talk about the military, you always talk about somebody getting shot at, you shooting at somebody, because that's a real life or death situations, but you're there administering CPR in a life or death situation. I mean, that's
Right.
we forget that those situations come up as well.
Correct. And that was,
Like,
I mean, I think that was pretty proud moments too, when they start breathing again or whatever, you know, and, you know, we're able to get them back. And it was like, that was something that I could, you know, I'd go home, you know, I'd be done with that and I'd be shaken from the adrenaline, but I'd be also happy, you know, that I was able to do that. So I'd have to say that was one of them big ones too, is that. So anyway, but helping people with CPR and that Philippines taking the flag down was probably two of my greatest things that I really was proud of. Yeah.
Did we get it all?
I think so. I think we did pretty well there. Yeah. Yeah. Can't think of really anything else, you know, as far as, you know, just that, you know, my 20 years in the Air Force was something I would definitely do again. Yeah. That's for sure. Yeah. Do it again.
Awesome.
No complaints. No complaints.
Air Force Master Sergeant retired John Mathis. Thanks for giving your story. It's been an honor to hear it, and it's been a pleasure to have you walk me through your career.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed it.
On behalf of Master Sergeant Mathis, I'd like to thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please leave a like and a comment and share the podcast with someone else. And as always, make sure to download the next episode for more service origin stories. So until next time, on your feet, dismiss!